Hello everybody, good morning and welcome. My name is Paul Coyle and I'm the director of the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network. Our mission is to provide practical definitions of the mindset and to share experiences amongst our members who are currently located in 74 countries worldwide. I tell you that because in your roles as champions of enterprise and entrepreneurship, I think you can take encouragement from knowing that there are people just like you all over the world who are working to promote the value of entrepreneurial thinking in higher education. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to make a contribution to this year's IEEC conference, and I extend my thanks for that to Gareth Traynor and all the EEUK board. I've been asked to talk on the topic Influencing Change, the Power of the Entrepreneurial Mindset. My starting point is to consider all of you as champions of change within each of your organisations, and I'm promoting the idea that you can all use an entrepreneurial mindset, you can all mimic the behaviours of an entrepreneur to achieve your ambitions for change on behalf of your students and the many stakeholders in your local ecosystem. I'm not going to ignore the turbulent times in which we're living or the many ongoing uncertainties precipitated by COVID-19. I don't think we can consider how to bring about successful change without acknowledging this difficult context. Talking to higher education professionals all over the world, I can tell you that most people have had very similar experiences about trying to adapt to the online environment and juggling work-home commitments. One person said to me, it's about having the right mindset. You have to find how to make it happen because there is no other choice. Higher education organisations have recently been congratulating themselves about the move of tuition and some student services to the online environment. But do you think there's also a sense of complacency about the quality of what is being provided and whether it is enabling independent and deep learning by students? Without a solid academic rationale rather than a reaction to a crisis, how does online education meet the expectations of students? Or do they see it as a further degradation of the number of contact hours that they have with staff? HE professionals have their own concerns about the potential loss of institutional support and funding for their activities, and the dangers of restructuring and loss of job security. Against this background, how can you remain motivated to deliver change? It's important to come up with strategies and policies and research findings, but they mean nothing if they do not directly translate into your actions. I would ask you to consider whether you can take all your experiences of enterprise and entrepreneurship and apply that knowledge and skills to leading the changes that you want to see in your own organisation. I want to argue that the right mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset, will help you to do just that by giving you confidence and determination. With the wrong mindset, you will feel like you have to just put up with the way things are, and you may well feel demotivated and disempowered. As individuals, there are in fact many small changes that you can put into place as long as they comply with academic regulations and quality procedures and are feasible within the available financial and physical resources. Within these frameworks and constraints, there is some room for you to be creative and innovative. However, if you're going to champion some more significant projects and scale them up to involve larger numbers of people, then, like an entrepreneur, you're going to have to be able to sell the case for change. Even in normal circumstances, significant change is never easy, and there are always many obstacles to be anticipated and overcome. Significant changes are going to be needed in response to the restrictions arising from the pandemic, and they may involve disruptions to curriculum delivery, changes in budget, levels of staffing, workloads, and routine procedures. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you won't be discouraged by all the challenges that you're facing. You won't be asking, when is somebody else going to do something about it? You'll be saying to yourself, what am I going to do? What am I going to do today? Selling is easier if what you're selling clearly meets a real need, and this necessitates that you have a good overview of the needs of students, academics, professional support staff, executive leaders and governors, as well as employers, partner organisations, funding bodies and governments. You may want to propose changes to curriculum content or delivery, make the case for investment in staff or facilities, call for the updating of careers support, or propose new research or KTP activities and external collaborations. In terms of creating your case for change, you are likely to have to try and influence a range of people, including co-workers, your boss, colleagues in other departments or units, and people outside the organisation. If you're going to get approval for your plans, the decision is likely to be made in a one-to-one meeting, small group discussion, and more likely at a committee or working group. It's vital that you're familiar with how to present and sell your ideas in a convincing manner in any of these situations, and that you understand the protocols by which discussions are conducted and approval gained. The hard part is to get people on board, to help them to see the part they could play and motivate them to make their contribution. We like to think that good communication will easily lead to good collaboration, but in truth, selling your ideas for change can involve trading, bargaining and compromise, and if you want to challenge the status quo, then you may well have to cope with competition, conflict and power struggles. In addition to the entrepreneurial behaviour of selling, like an entrepreneur, you will also need to take risks, which can mean trying something new, putting forward innovative proposals, or saying what you really think. Risk-taking is not a reckless behaviour, rather it is a thoughtful and calculated process, which guides you to be able to take the right risks. Risk-taking is essential if you're going to be more creative and innovative in finding ways to meet real needs. Therefore, you have to plan for risks and not avoid them. It's natural to want to avoid things going wrong or avoid having to deal with failure, but this may hold us back from taking the risks that would lead to a set of positive outcomes that otherwise wouldn't be possible. The challenge of taking more risks is that the culture of higher education is predominantly one of conformity and risk aversion. Even amongst leaders, there can be a heavy bias towards the status quo. Think of all the changes that you've wanted to see over the past 10 years that simply have not happened. We like to think that people will be won over by the logic of a good idea, but that's not often the case. There can be fierce opposition or even indifference to even the most sensible of ideas. In advance of the conference, I invited you to use a taster of an online mindset diagnostic tool. The full tool gives feedback on 7 essential entrepreneurial behaviours. The feedback you received was about one of the behaviours, dare to take risks. The feedback is given in terms of progress with your entrepreneurial journey. The data collected is anonymised, but from the time you were invited to use the tool to yesterday, 71 people completed it. The results of your self-evaluations are shown here. 4 people had reached wake up and were now aware of the benefits of risk-taking. 5 people were at wise up and were learning more about how to take risks. 3 people had reached warm up and were at the planning stage of taking some risks. 6 people had made it to startup and had integrated some small risks into their work. 41 people judged they were at scale up, not afraid to take the risk of dealing with difficult issues. 12 people had reached the shake-up stage and were seen as role models for risk-taking and therefore enabling other people to be less risk-averse. So what happens when you've identified the need for your organisation to become more entrepreneurial and you've taken the risk of presenting the case for change? What if people say they agree with you about the need to be entrepreneurial, but then they continue on to say that they believe the organisation already is? What if they point to the one course in the business school, or they cite a business created by a student, or a research project that was commercialised, or the existence of a technology transfer office, enterprise centre, or incubator? What if they use these activities to justify a claim that the organisation is already sufficiently entrepreneurial? How will you convince people that this is not enough? Get a conversation going about the need for greater ambition and to have a sense of urgency. How do your efforts at selling step up a gear so that you are in fact campaigning for greater change and for a new organisational culture which can be evidenced as truly entrepreneurial? How can you make the case that the entrepreneurial mindset is in fact fundamentally essential to the future transformation of your organisation and indeed higher education? People can be unwilling to get involved in new projects, no matter how worthy they are, because they're too busy and their workloads are already too high. There's a need for all of us to improve productivity so that space is created in the working week to take on new projects. Traditional ways of working, especially meetings and committee work, are in urgent need of re-evaluation, and smarter ways must be found to ensure that decisions are more timely and enjoy greater levels of support. Efficient methods of teaching large groups of students need to be extended to include innovative assessment methods, which place reasonable burdens on academics and which also provide students with meaningful and timely feedback. Higher education organisations need many specialists, and there is a danger that a silo mentality, department versus department, academics versus administrators, can undermine collaboration and increase inefficiencies. Like so much else in higher education, you can only get so far by yourself, so good teamwork and collaboration are essential if you're going to make real progress. Human resource policies and procedures need to enable staff to deal with the challenges of rising workloads and competing priorities, for example between teaching, research, administration and external liaison, so that staff feel supported rather than left to sink or swim. Improving productivity doesn't just happen, it needs to be constantly worked at because workloads will continue to grow and resources may remain static at best and more likely diminish. So in conclusion, being entrepreneurial means taking action, being prepared to be the first one to take action, not sitting back or waiting in the hope that somebody else will take the necessary actions. It means not letting days of inaction drift into months or suddenly realising that years have gone by when there has been nothing more than good intentions. You need to win people over through your actions, not just your words, gradually building up more and more support, and all the time being sensitive to the value of including a diverse range of people. You'll need to anticipate, accept, and plan to overcome obstacles and disagreements, not be demotivated by setbacks, and instead have the ability to keep going when the going gets tough. It's a positive thing if you come to be seen as a leader of change and people look to you as a role model. Equally, you need to be aware that you might be seen as difficult, overly critical, or a troublemaker. You need to watch out for the dangers of being sidelined in projects, overlooked in promotions, or being considered for redundancy. You have to remember that change will cause reactions, that substantial changes can cause major opposition, and that you need to have the ability to navigate a path through the minefield of politics and difficult working relationships. Only you can decide how far you're prepared to go in order to achieve your goals for change and how much you want to take the initiative for making things happen. With the right mindset, like an entrepreneur, you take ownership of problems, you see opportunities, you don't sit back and wait, you take the initiative, you say what you really think, you come up with solutions, and you make the best use of the available resources. The only question now is, what are you waiting for?